good morning. Good to see you, Todd. It's been years since I've seen you, so I'm glad we're doing a Zoom, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Look at you. You're looking good.
Yeah, I'm trying, man. I'm trying. I put a lot of effort in. God's been really good to me, and it's kind of wild how things escalate when you're. I was just talking to a guy yesterday when you burn the boats behind you and you force yourself to march forward, and I didn't realize I was doing that when I came to Texas.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I had no idea. The friend base and the family base I had allowed me to be immature in my personality growth.
Hmm.
And I did not have a choice but to, to learn some new skills under the circumstance of being 2,000 miles away from everything I know that's familiar. And then to have the unforeseen circumstances with my immediate family here put me in even a greater dire strait to bring myself around a little bit more than I anticipated needing to do.
Yeah,
And like I said, it's amazing how much that escalates, how fast that escalates.
yeah.
So, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Yeah, really good. Savannah just got home last night.
Oh, is that what that picture of you guys in front of the banner was? That just recently?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Where was it? On Facebook?
Yes,
Let me see here.
because there's definitely a. I thought it was a banner of you in Savannah. I don't know. Before I do this, I normally go through like Instagram or Facebook and try to get like a feel for where someone's life is at the moment, so that way we're like relevant to each other.
Let me see here. Oh, oh, oh that no, that's not Savannah. That I don't know if you've seen that, but
I can see it a little bit, yeah.
that's Sterling is the tall guy there. He's, my oldest son. And then Morgan.
How old is your oldest son?
Sterling, well, in next month, he'll be 15.
No kidding, man.
Yeah, we did that for Veterans Day there. But and then Morgan will be 12 Friday. So he's practically 12. Adele will be 10 on January 4th, which is my birthday. I'll turn 45. She'll turn 10. And then Gwinnett is 8.
I forgot you're older than me, man.
Just by a tad, right?
Yeah, like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Oh, that meant a lot in 12 years old, though.
Yeah, it always, yeah. Yeah, always can. Yeah, but, then it means nothing.
Yeah, I was gonna say 4 months or 45 years old. 4 months is like 1%, not less than 1%. It's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah. So,
But yeah,
yeah.
I appreciate you, man. I thank you for talking to me last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. I needed to steer in a little bit of a different direction, and I'll be honest with you. It seems like the last couple guys I talked to, they definitely were on the same genre of mindset, and really just trying to focus on serving versus trying to focus on any other motive on what I'm doing, and this is getting a lot harder. Doing video is way harder than editing audio.
Well, for sure it is. And
Yeah, yeah.
one of the nice things, though, it's like you go back, to this area where you had that Mike and Mike ESPN radio show. And then the ESPN, they lost their morning TV person, and they scrambled. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Because it was a last minute thing, and somebody said, well, just throw a video camera in on Mike and Mike. And so
Isn't that amazing? It's amazing.
the Mike and Mike radio show, because of an emergency, became a Mike and Mike radio, and they televised while they were doing their radio. And people fell in love with it. And they're like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
So then So then they said, well, if we're gonna really commit to this, we got to give them their own studio and make it good for TV and radio. But initially, they were just filming the Mike and Mike show in the studio, in the radio studio, and then it wasn't long, where they had their own Mike and Mike TV and radio studio. But they never quit doing the TV, and they always did it that way. Like they were like, we're not TV guys. We're not here to impress people on the TV. We're radio guys, and they always did their show as if it was a radio show that happened to be televised.
Yes.
But it just kind of was. It was different and it was cool. And so, but you're right. I think, we live in a day and age, though, I think, where people are more used to that. They kind of broke the ground, but now you see podcast people televising it all the time.
All the time. It's the natural progression, because the great thing is you didn't lose the audio at all. I publish this. It goes on Spotify. If you're in your car, a truck driver, you're just going to listen to the audio.
Yeah.
So there was nothing lost. But if you don't do the video, those other half of the people that you would have caught on YouTube or you would have caught somewhere else are gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a natural progression. It's so far this entire endeavor has cost me $30.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So it's not that bad.
And there's a lot of editing tools nowadays.
Yes, and all of them are free. So
that's pretty amazing as well, right?
yeah, isn't it amazing? It's as you got to look at one of my like two guys before this one, or not two guys, but two guys that I've published so far video wise. I did all the editing myself, man. They're not perfect, but I'm learning.
But like I said, nowadays you don't have to be perfect. If you can get some, intro music and outro music.
Yeah, you know what? I got the blessing of finding someone in San Antonio, and the guy did some demo videos for me and a couple like intros for me, and he did them for free.
Oh, that's great. So there you go.
Yeah, super nice guy. So I just give him a shout out at the end of my video saying thank you, Todd Jones. I appreciate the graphics, man. Yeah.
I mean, you look at somebody like the outro music. What did Rush Limbaugh have? He had a sound tone.
Oh, okay. I didn't even remember. I remember the beginning.
It would do that. And it was done. I'm like, how lame is that? But of course,
but it becomes iconic if you can make it stick. But yeah,
you're right to go to serving. I mean, one of the things I try to tell my kids, especially as they become teenagers, obviously we know the verse. Jesus said, "The greatest in heaven will be the servant of all." But what does it really look like to serve? And I tell my kids all the time, when you start becoming a teenager, you want to look to contribute about as much as you consume. And then as you're getting on the other end of your teen years, you're at 18, 19, you want to be able to say, I contribute more than I consume.
Yes.
And that's in everything, in a relationship, in your home, in your room, at your job, at church, or, in your neighborhood, everything you are involved in, you want to ask yourself, am I contributing more than I consume? When you're not, then in a sense you have a debt to that person, which is the way of services. So if somebody changes the oil on your car, well, now they're contributing to you. You're consuming from them. Well, how do you handle that? Well, you give them money. And so you equalize everything in a business deal. In a business deal, everything should be equal. Everybody's consuming and contributing in equal amounts, some form or another. But in relationships and in your home and in any kind of organization you're part of, even where you work, like, do I give more to this company? I thought like what Elon Musk did, was it yesterday, was just brilliant. Because he told all of his employees, he's like, we're going to work 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. I'm going to require of it. We have to get Twitter turned around. And if you don't want to do that, then you need to quit. Because I am going to demand everybody work 60, 70, 80 hours a week.
Yeah, I saw that. It was like yesterday or the day before. Yeah, I saw that.
Well, now look at most people would say, man, how do we weed out the driftwood here, the deadwood? How do we and fire them? And Elon Musk is like, hey, now I don't need to fire you. I'm gonna make it so that you have to work hard, and if you don't want to, you're gonna want to quit. And in this way, he's separated the contributors from the consumers in his company, the people who just showed up. There's this new word, quiet quitting. They show up to work, but they don't really do anything while they're at work. They just kind of sit around, read articles, do podcasts. And they're getting paid.
They're getting paid top dollar too. This is not like chump change.
So Musk is like, we're going to work really, really hard. And everybody's like, hey, that's not fair. Oh, and no more free lunches. He canceled free lunches on them.
Really? They even had espresso machines.
I know. So he cancels all of this. But now he doesn't have to fire those people because they quit. He created an environment where they weren't going to be comfortable, and they quit. Now who's left are the hard workers. Who care?
I think I also saw another thing where he fired them over an email. That was like a voiceover email.
I don't know. He does some crazy things too. But what's he doing was saying, listen, if you're going to be at this company, you need to add more value than what we're giving you. Honestly, if I was hiring somebody and it cost me, just easy numbers, $1,000 a week to hire them, but they're only giving back to the company something worth $800 a week, then it's a loss for me to hire them. The best thing for my company is to fire them right away or show them how they can make me. But let's say it's even. I give them 1,000, and because I've hired them, my business has grown by 1,000. Well, then I've just added $1,000 worth of more headaches to myself, and it's still a zero. Now, maybe if I love the person and I feel good about giving them $1,000, giving them their job. But in general, if I hire someone at $1,000 a week, I hope I'm getting $2,000 a week in business back from them.
Actually, 3,000 because you got to factor in risk.
Well, right. And at some point now, if they bring in $5,000 worth of business, then they ought to be coming into my office, sitting down and saying, hey, Todd, I'm bringing in $5,000 worth of business, and you're only giving me 1,000. How about I get 1,500?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the most honest trade is as fair as possible.
Yeah, but the point is, I should be making money for everybody I hire. It should benefit me, and if not, then those people are just, again, they're consuming more than they're contributing, and my company will be better if they go.
Yeah. I agree with you, man, and it's easy to forget that we're here to serve each other, and that we're it's very easy to forget that.
That's where home is perfect. So again, I tell this to my kids. How are you going to contribute? Well, make your bed. Take out the trash, mow the lawn, clean the bathroom. Don't wait till you're told to do certain things. Have a mindset that says, oh, that needs to be done. And I'm in a home where I'm getting free room, free education, free food, free heat, free everything. Oh, that needs to be done? Man, I'm not going to wait till mom tells me to do it. I'm going to do it. Because I want to start building this mindset of I want to contribute in my home more than I consume.
And not only that, but appreciation. When you have appreciation built in, it like coats your mind from being bitter or angry about things. You know what I mean? Or to get selfish. It completely takes the place of that little box inside of you.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, no, for sure. And again, it's another way of creating emotional equity.
Emotional equity. Okay.
For me, so now my gratitude shows you, and hopefully my gratitude helps you feel good that you gave to me. Not so that you'll keep giving it, not for any kind of dumb reason like that, but just because you deserve that. If you gave to me, you deserve to feel good about giving.
Yeah.
And so I want to become, I want to make sure you know how grateful I am. Yeah, yeah, that's those are good points.
Yeah, I gotta work on that with my kids because I got a couple that naturally do it and a couple that don't naturally do it, and I need to work on it.
Well, I think all kids. I'm going to close these shades here. They're getting. I think all kids. It's good to to study them as a parent. That's what we do, and then say, okay, how do they need to grow? So we study our kids, and we're like, okay, which ways are they? What's their strengths? What's their weaknesses? SWOT, they call it: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Right? SWOT. So with the kids, it's like, okay, what's their strengths? I need to praise that. I need to show them how awesome they are. Affirm that. Like, you don't want to lose that. They say every good parent has 5 positive interactions for 1 negative one. And if you get that even higher, it's better. Like, the more, because it teaches your kids to want your approval. And if you don't do that, then they start looking for the approval of their peers.
Yeah.
And so you constantly praise, but you need to study them and know their strengths and then their weaknesses. How are they, they just need to grow up. They need to mature. They need to, and you can be understanding of their weaknesses, but you also want to be like, how do I encourage them to grow? And really when you do that, you're serving them. And then opportunities, and then threats, what are the things that do that? So, constantly as parents, that's what we do.
Yeah. All right. And you're constantly reevaluating your scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things we were built to do. We were built to reevaluate, revamp, rework. It's kind of like dying to your old self. And you're just constantly burning that dead wood so that new stuff can grow, man. I find myself in a constant positive cycle of trying to get into a position where I'm doing a little bit more. I realize now, after about 4 months of doing this now, that if you can get just a little bit better at something every day, it exponentially grows. There's no limitation really to the ability to learn or the ability to grow. And
You're absolutely right.
I didn't realize how true that statement is. You live your life and it accidentally happens on its own. When I was working in construction, it just would happen. But I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't trying to dissect it. I wasn't trying to mentally figure it out. But now I'm trying to figure this stuff out a little bit more and profoundly.
If you narrow the pie small enough and get focused on exactly and not allow mission creep, just spend 15 minutes a day on something. It won't be long. It won't be long before you know more than 99% of everyone else around.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing how it escalates?
It is amazing.
It's amazing. And it seems like there's no limitation.
There isn't. If you can narrow the scope, again, enough, whatever that could be, it's just astonishing.
And you said it in a certain way, but I've worded it differently. Going in the weeds. If I start letting my mind wander, I call it going in the weeds. And I tell myself, get out of the weeds, get back on the path, and focus.
And this is the problem with Facebook, emails, texts. I mean, it's they rob you of focus. They absolutely rob you of focus. And learning to just shut all that down, even if it's for a couple hours or whatever, and say, I will not let myself get interrupted.
Yes. Actually, we have a systemic problem in general with technology right now. We're allowing ourselves to get such high dopamine levels from so much stimulation from so many different angles. The guy that I did the podcast with last night is what is it called? It's a stop using porn coach. Literally, he's a coach to stop men from using pornography and get guys on a better path. And then he builds on that with all kinds of other things like going to the gym and all these other focuses so that you don't go back to porn again. And it was an amazing conversation. The guy really has it hammered down that you pair bond with the people you're intimate with. And you can't pair bond with too many people before the Velcro doesn't stick anymore.
Right.
And if you're watching pornography, you're pair bonding with yourself.
Yes.
It's like this horrible, and then you're affirming, I can get the dopamine levels by watching this video and taking care of this on the couch by myself, or you know what I mean? And now all of a sudden there's a reward system, and it's a circular loop of you literally fulfilling something that wasn't even meant to be fulfilled in that manner. But I looked at it with my overweight and losing weight. There's so many parallels to the dopamine issue that people are just overwhelmed with easy highs. We can go on a dating app and get really, really, really affirmation high instantly with just some pictures and a little bit of attention. We could do it with porn. We could do it, and there's so much of it. It's everywhere. It's everything. You go unlimited shopping and just borrow your brains out.
Here in Bristol, they just legalized, recreational marijuana, and there's another area where you can just get on the couch, get high.
Yeah.
All of those things. And
video games.
Video games. You're exactly right, and part of it is people actually don't want to feel normal. They want to feel good. It's not enough just to feel normal.
I truly believe, though, God's purpose for you is robbed when you fulfill it in those manners.
Well, absolutely. And part of it, too, is, though, it's chicken and egg. What comes first? I actually think what comes first is that you're not pursuing God's purpose. And now you're bored at some level. Satan's tricked you into thinking you're going to hate pursuing your purpose, that it's not going to fulfill you, it's not going to satisfy you. So you're believing a lie that the things God has for you are just overwhelming, or they're hard work, or they're not what you really want. And so now you're at a low level boredom without your being aware of how bored you are. And I believe in our country, like 90% of our country is bored. They don't know how bored they are.
Now, can you be bringing your level of value to the table if you're bored and doing these dumb things all the time?
Well, no, you can't be, because you're not realizing it in your own self.
So we got a nation of people that are not they're not giving their fair share of their value back.
Columbia University professor back in the 80s, his name was Neil Postman, but he wrote a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death. And it's a fascinating read on how we as a society, this is back in the 80s, and I think it's just grown from there and augmented, but how as a society, we're just entertaining ourselves so much that none of us are reaching our potential or even striving to.
Not even striving. I think the worst part isn't that you don't make it. I think the worst part is that we're not striving.
Well, that's it. So he writes this book, Amusing, and you look at, well, break down that word. I think he does this in his book, but to muse is to think, right? To muse is to think. The prefix "a" is without, like you have morals and amoral, right? So the prefix "a" or "a" is to not do something, and then it goes up before whatever it is that you're not doing. So muse is to think, "a" is not, amuse is to not think.
Yeah.
And you think about amusements, and his idea is that even the news, which is supposed to be serious, he said even the news has become entertaining. It's become amusing.
Oh, it becomes addicting. It becomes addicting.
Right. You're not allowed to think about the news they're giving you. They will tell you what to think in the news now, right? So it's not, in his mind, it's not real news anymore. News is, this is what happened. Now you respond to it. You create your thoughts. But no, it's like, this is what happened. Here's how you're supposed to respond. Here's how you're supposed to think about all those events. And so now, depending on what news you listen to, your worldview is totally shaped. Well, that should never happen if it's just news, but it's never just news. They're telling you how to think. And so who you listen to determines how you think about life and about that news. And so his point is we're amusing ourselves to death everywhere we go. And it's increasing our boredom levels. Let's look at this. You know, I play the piano and I play pretty well. And I love it. What if I didn't have parents who studied me and said, Todd has a gift for music and it's in his fingers. Let's lean into that. Let's see what's there. And oh wow, there's something there. Let's get him lessons. Let's have him practice. Let's make him practice even when he doesn't want to practice.
I remember there was a couple times you did not want to, man.
Right. Well, I wanted to play with you. And so let's do all these things. Well, what if I never learned to play the piano? If they weren't those kinds of parents, there would be something in me, because piano's a pretty strong gift. There'd be something in me that was left unfulfilled. And it'd be like in the back of my mind, this sense that, man, there's something I should be able to do and maybe even be good at. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And let's say I stumble across it sometime in my 30s.
It's normally too late by then.
Yeah, because life is so like...
Yeah, you're busy working, you got your family started, you're worried about the house, you're worried about vacation.
Right. So this huge fulfilling thing for me, and it brings me joy, it brings joy to other people, and it's something that...
I'm sure it bleeds into your kids.
Yes, but it would have been overlooked. And there would be a certain amount of boredom because I should be doing something, but I don't know what to do or how to do it. I mean, can you imagine if you never learned to read? You'd feel inside of you like you were missing out. Even if you didn't know reading was a thing. You grew up in some pygmy tribe and they didn't have any language. You would feel like, man, there's somehow knowledge somehow should be imparted and transferred, and I don't know how to do it.
There's more to this than just the trees and the monkeys.
Right. And then somebody comes along and shows you and writes a language and teaches you, and usually they're missionaries actually across the world.
Yeah. Historically, it's always been. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, you're like, whoa, wow. Like all of a sudden the light bulbs go off and you're like, wow, yes, this is what I was looking for. But I never knew it.
Potential.
I think what we have is generations of people whose parents didn't study their kids to find out what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses. And now their kids grew up a little bit undeveloped and they don't even know how they're undeveloped. And what it results to is instead of saying, okay, that happened, I got to figure out what are my gifts, what are my talents, who did God make me to be? And I got to pour in the energy of my life to develop that, equip myself so that I can then pursue that and be really fulfilled. No, that sounds like too much work. Let's turn on the Red Sox game.
You hit on something huge too, man. You said we die by amusement or something. How did you word it?
Neil Postman, amusing ourselves to death.
Okay. Well, another person said something it's a very profound thought. Another guy said something similar. He said, or maybe it was a woman. They see the death of authenticity. People aren't being very authentic anymore on top of that. And they may actually be a correlation. You lose some of what your potential was when you're younger, and you compensate by not being as authentic later.
Yeah. Well, right. So you have that boredom, the lack of authenticity. You know what, Regan? So many people aren't authentic to themselves.
Yes. And no, Todd, I was the same person. I didn't realize keeping a promise to myself would be so amazing.
I know. People can't even be real with themselves. And you're like, whoa, that is really like a whole level of like, that's unbelievable. But that's the reality. And I'm sure you talk to people. I know I do. It's like, what? No, you're not that. They think there's some great person. Like you're a legend in your own mind, but nobody else knows it. You know what I mean? People think they're a great parent, they're a great worker, a great person, whatever. And then you're like, well, hold on. How many New Year's resolutions did you make that would have made you a better person? Now, how many of them did you fulfill? Yeah. Okay, so what you're telling me is you've not grown in 20 years the way you wanted to grow. So no, you're not really that great of a person.
Well, it's scary. It's scary to grow.
You're the same person you were 20 years ago.
Yeah. And then you're complaining about the same outcome.
Right, because again, instead of doing something, people think that after they've worked and they get home at 4 or 5, whenever they get home, that now they can, like, they've earned the right to relax. And so, right, whatever it is, whether it's the baseball or the football or the news or the Kardashians or whatever your thing is,
Yeah, whatever it is.
like you're sitting down in front of whatever and you're wasting what is the best hours of your day because you're working from 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever you do. Well, those aren't your. That's
No, that's your baseline productivity right there. That's baseline.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you're giving a lot to your company, but
But it's still baseline. It's still baseline.
your family isn't with you. Your friends aren't there. Your church isn't there. You know what I mean. You're not able to do what you want to do. You're doing what you're told to do by your boss. So that's like. So then you get home and you finally get to live. You finally get to read whatever you want to read or spend time with whoever it is that matters to you and pursue your values and to grow and to not only grow yourself, but grow a relationship or to do a hobby that brings you pleasure and joy. Instead of all those things, you sit down and say, oh, I'm so exhausted. Now I get to watch whatever it is I'm going to do. And whether it's a movie, a TV show, or Facebook or whatever, and you're like, you're wasting the best few hours of your day, and that'd be okay if it was once a month.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You bring up such a great point that we waste time and that it's the potential is lost, and there's such a value in those 4 or 5 hours after work. I think it's also important to mention that if we can convince any guys right now to put down the phone, to turn off the TV, go spend time with your kids, or pursue a new career, or pursue a new idea, or just venture out and learn something new, that there's another step that I've noticed that's very important. You need other men around you to sharpen you while you're going, because you slowly go the wrong direction if you're on your own. If you're completely on your own, you will end up in the weeds a little bit, no matter how good your intentions are.
Yeah.
And I found myself that way with you, Todd. And I called you like 10 days earlier. I tried to call my dad, and he was busy. And I called you, and I was so thankful. It could escalate if you don't have someone to sharpen against.
Well, yes. Well, you're absolutely right. And people you respect, people who can mentor you, but you can mentor them. It's that iron sharpens iron, and so a man sharpens, right, his friend. And always honored to do that with anybody, and glad I've received it. I've been on the receiving end many times. It's so important. You have to define clearly what it is you want.
Yes.
What is it you want? Because if you don't know for yourself, nobody will help you. Because why would somebody help you wander around in the wilderness, right? And
We're going to end up right back where we started.
Right. And good people aren't going to do that. But if you know exactly where you want to be a few years from now, what you want to do, and you've defined it very clearly, and it's so clear anybody could run with it and understand and say, okay, I get that. That's what you want 5 years from now. Then you need to have some kind of a plan to get there. But then you should talk to people who have actually done that and say, hey, I want what you just have accomplished. Here's my thinking about how to get there from where I'm at now. What do you think about that? And invite their feedback. When they say, well, I did that, it didn't work, but here's what I did that did work. And you start tweaking your plan and find 3 or 4, 5, 10 other people. But then you've got to implement and you've got to carve out time to do it. And whether you wake up a few hours early or you do it when you get home, it doesn't really matter. I mean, one of the things I love, and whatever you say about who she is or her music or whatever, but I'm just going to talk about work ethic. But Dolly Parton. So she's working and she wants to write music. And of course, that's a gift she has. Now, we know that now at the end of her life. You know, obviously one of the greatest songwriters and performers, you know, of our generation.
Yeah, I don't even know how many songs.
Yeah, right. So she's obviously gifted, but she's working, and she's working on. So what does she start doing? She gets up at 3 a.m. and she writes, because if she worked all day, she would come home exhausted and she wouldn't write.
Yeah.
And her creativity was gone, and you need to be creative for working. And if you're tired, you're not going to write music when you're tired. Not good music, and the words and the music, and she did all of that, and you have to be creative. So she said, I'm too exhausted if I wait till after I work. She said, okay, I'll go to bed at 7 at night. I'll wake up at 3 in the morning, and I'll be fresh. Well, and so she wrote, and then she became successful. Guess what, Regan? She never stopped. She still, to this day, wakes up at 3 in the
Like
morning.
80 years old, man.
80 years old, waking up at 3 in the morning.
It's amazing.
Creative writing of music and words matters that much to her. She doesn't want to be distracted. Nobody sends her a text message. Nobody calls her. Nobody wants to visit at 3 in the morning. So she's able to get all this productivity done of the things that are valuable to her. Now, I'm a pastor. What I value is talking with people. So I go the other way. Most people want to talk to me at 6 to 9. You know what I mean? So I'm talking in the evenings with a lot of people, or on Saturday, like today. But that's you see. But the whole point is you restructure your life based on what's truly important to you, and whether you're getting up early in the morning or you're staying up late. But you can't let yourself get distracted by things that will have no value 5 days from now. Not to say 5 years from now or 50 years from now. But we let that happen. A lot of us. And you think, it's just a waste. And then you go to bed thinking, wow, well, this was just a ho-hum day. So then what do? This is going back to your point earlier. So then what do? Like, we're going to bed and we're like, man, I didn't have very much fulfillment, and all these things. Like, we start searching for something to make us feel good. We don't want to feel bored. And so now, back to your point earlier and your other gentleman's point, we start searching for whatever the quick fix is to make us feel like, oh, yeah, okay. The problem with pornography and all those other things is once you've done it, the best moment of your day is now past you. And it was a pretty worthless moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're bonding with yourself. It's such an insane endeavor.
Right. But in that little micro, like, whatever it is, time of your day, you're in that moment, you're feeling great about yourself. You're within yourself.
Yeah, no, but here's the thing, though, Todd. It's just like the drugs. You never get enough, and you need more. And the dopamine levels, once you raise the dopamine levels to a certain level, it's like skydiving. Now, going on the roller coaster don't mean nothing.
Right.
So that initial porn that got you to where you need to be needs to escalate.
Right. And it's all a trap. It's all a trap to get you away from this thing that God made you for. That's going to be so fulfilling and make you feel wild about life. It distracts you from that and is this little fishing lure dongle glingy thing that says, oh, eat this instead.
Yeah, it's squirrel.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden you're distracted from this that would actually give you all of that rush, all that fulfillment, satisfaction. And now you're here and it's 15 minutes of satisfaction that, like you say, diminishes. But the thing is, you get to a point where you feel like this could never happen for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They said they're having a huge problem with people turning into voyeurs. Where they just want someone they can watch do what they're supposed to do with their wives. It's absolutely insane. So another thing, too, is like when you are a hunter-gatherer and you go kill an animal, you have to expend energy to get the gratitude of eating that steak. So there's a reward system, and the same thing with the fulfillment of being with your wife or the fulfillment of interacting with your kids. There's a reward system that God built into us that when you pervert it the other way, even if it's just a video game, you've ruined the circuitry of your mind, the proper.
You've created a shortcut. Only thing is, it's not a shortcut to the same destination.
No, because there's a true 100% fulfillment in killing the deer and eating the deer, and it never goes away. You do it again, and you'll get the exact same dopamine you need. and it never ends. Whereas the other version, it just ends.
Well, yeah, like I said, you think it's a shortcut to this spot, but it's not. It's actually a detour way over here.
Yeah.
And you don't know it until it's too late. But in a way, it's never too late. If you're hearing this and and you're thinking, well, man, what do I do? I'm in that trap. Like, you can always do something, and it may take a while, but like
do a small thing. Do a small thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've talked to lots of guys who have gotten out of that trap. But a part of that whole thing is realizing that pornography is not your problem. Pornography was your solution.
Ooh.
And it's a horrible solution
to
a deeper problem. But eventually it gets so big in your life that it becomes a problem, but it's never been your problem. It's always been a horrible, bad solution to a deeper problem. And you got to solve the deeper problem. And I think the deeper problem is back to over here. Never being studied enough to know what you're really good at, or you've been escaping it, and not pursuing the energy and the effort of your life, of your entire life. We all need, as men, a life's calling, a life's work, a purpose that we're giving ourselves to. And when you don't know what that is, then life just seems to have no meaning and value to you. Well, then you might as well fill your life with all this junk stuff. And that lack of purpose, that lack of I've got to know what it is, and then equip yourself, study for it, train for it, get people around you who are good at it, and then work your way through it. And it could take, I know a guy, he's a friend of mine. He was in business finance. His degree was finance, and he realized, I was bored crunching numbers. I liked more conflict. I like to argue things. I was in my 40s. I went back to school, and I had to keep my job. It was night school, but I became a lawyer.
Nice.
And he said, once I got that degree, I was able to quit my finance number crunching and engage with people who like to kind of battle it out and argue and things like that. It made all the difference in my life.
Yeah.
I went from being bored with my job and stuck in this rat race and feeling like I'm the hamster on the wheel, running, going nowhere, to oh yeah, that was fun. Even when I lose an argument with somebody in a court case, it's more fun for me to lose than to do that. It's like I feel alive. I feel good. There you go. You found what you were made to do. And now, for my life, I was saying to a good friend of mine, if I retired tomorrow, nothing in my life would change. I would still do exactly what I'm doing.
Nice.
It's like I retired 10 years ago. I just didn't have language to put it into those words. But it's I retired 10 years ago when I got this job because it's what I want to do until the day I die. I love it. I love doing it. Yeah. And that's what you want to find. Everybody.
Yeah. That's really important, Todd. That we tell guys that if you don't know what your calling is, you could just ask. Yeah. Ask God. And I give you my word, He will tell you. And it won't take long. And if He doesn't tell you right away and you're sitting at the corner of your bed why? Clean your room. Exactly. Make your bed. And your environment. Look around for a minute and say, does something need to get painted? Do I need to mow the lawn? And just as you go through your day, God's going to point out the things that need to be fixed. And you're going to constantly get, and all of a sudden, the light will go off. It may take a couple days, a couple weeks, it doesn't matter. But one day it'll be, oh, you need to start a podcast, or you need to go be a lawyer, or you need to be a preacher. Whatever it is, it will come. I give you my word. Because mine sat on the bench for 10 years. Me and you sat at that Diner Oasis over 10 years ago, and that thing sat on the shelf for 10 years. And I knew that's what I was supposed to be doing instead of drinking beer and watching TV.
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew it was.
And here you are doing it. But you escaped it for a while. And
you can't bend reality. It always snaps back.
Yep. But you're absolutely right. If you don't know what, get quiet, don't get distracted. You may know what it is and you just don't know it, or you maybe forgot that you knew what it was. Two, though, you're absolutely right. Why would God show you what he has for your life when there's some obvious things you need to be doing right now.
Yeah.
So, right, if you're living in a mess, clean up your mess. And then another thing I found, people find out what their calling is when they, back to our original thing, when they start serving other people. And they think, you know what? I don't know what my calling is, but I know I can help that person.
Well, what's the golden rule? Love your brother.
But others as you want them to do to you. So you start reaching out to serve your community, your family, other people in ways you know you can. And suddenly you start realizing, oh, I'm actually pretty good at that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy in our church, and he always operated on a budget and figured, well, that's what everybody does. He found out somebody else in our church was financially struggling. He said, well, let's look at your budget. And then they'll go, what? What's a budget? and he thought, well, all right, let's have coffee next week.
Yeah, how did you get through high school?
And all of a sudden, he's helping them with their budget, which is, a budget is just a way of making sure you're putting your treasure in what's very valuable to you. I mean, it's just a brilliant tool to give the way you want to give. So anyway, he's talking them through, like, what are your values? Well, then, if that's something very important to you, why are you only allocating $50 a year to that? Meanwhile, this thing that's not important to you, like whatever, cable, you're giving $300 a year to. What do you
It's
want
crazy. Absolutely crazy.
change that based on your values? So he's talking through the values, he's talking, and then budgeting their money. And then say, okay, so these things that are important, we don't need to be spending money on them because you said they're not important for you. So why don't you cancel that, get rid of that, do that, whatever. All of a sudden, they're making more money, but they're also happier because the money they spend, they're spending the way they want to, the way they value life. Well, this was many, many years ago. He's been nonstop doing this for people now. He finds out he loves helping people figure out their values, their priorities, and how they spend their money, and all these things, and create emergency funds. And he's become this brilliant person helping lots of families.
That's awesome.
And it's just because one person, he went to help them, you know? So it's like, yeah, do everything, do all those things. And all of a sudden it will be very clear. And then you'll know it because you'll feel alive.
Yeah.
You'll feel like, oh yeah, this was what I was born to do, and I'm living my dream. And don't escape. Don't be afraid of it. Don't let Satan trap you into thinking you're not good at it or you don't really like it.
Or you got to wait a little bit longer, or you're not good enough. You just got to get a little bit gooder, or whatever words you want to. Yeah.
Sometimes we're so mature. My kids are like this. Like, oh, I don't like to read. I'm like, no, you just haven't read the right book yet. You know?
Yeah, because reading is probably the greatest feeling on the planet when you find the right thing, man.
Right. Or I don't like to write. I'm like, yeah, that's just because you're not good at it yet. Get good at it. You'll love to write. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sometimes we let Satan trick us into thinking, this happens with a lot of men. I don't like to worship. I don't like church. I don't know that God is my thing. I'm like, actually, you were made to worship. The interaction you'll have at church is some of the best interactions you'll have all week if it's a good church, you know, and we were made to relate to God and to interact with God. And it's so rewarding when you do that. And every guy who gets deep into doing that walks away saying, yes, I was made for that. I feel fully alive when I'm in the presence of God. Satan is wanting you to not have that experience, that in his presence is your fulfillment. And so he does everything he can to convince you, like my kids say they don't like to read. And it's like he's trying to convince men, avoid God, avoid relationship with God, avoid church, avoid worship. Or if you do worship really quiet and withdrawn and really like shy.
And I've never understood that, because people are so brave right now coming out of the closet, and they have no problems showing everything they believe. And
unless it's Jesus, right?
Yeah, I don't understand. I'm not going to lie, Todd, I find myself in that position sometimes too.
So that's the trap of Satan.
It is. It's a trap.
Because what we really need is to know why God made us. And when we figure that out, and then we get good at it, and we're working with God, and we know because we're doing what he made us to do, that we're putting a smile on his face. And it's by doing something that really is fulfilling for us. There's nothing better at night than to know I did what I was born to do today.
And as much as I could, 5% more than I thought was even possible.
Yeah, and because I did, I made my God thrilled. I thrilled him today. And it thrills me to know that. And it's just awesome.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why we have free will, is because we have an unlimited potential to please him.
Yeah, we do.
And we have an unending and our potential has no limitations. I think Satan and the angels there, I think they were pre-programmed to be exactly what they are. I think that's a correlation to why they didn't have a whole lot of choices. Do you know what I'm saying? They were pre-built to be exactly the way they are. And we have the potential to never stop growing.
Right.
Never stop worshiping. And actually, I think our relationship with God, I don't think there's any potential to that either, to stop. We can get closer to him than we really think. I think human beings, I think in general, whether it be creating a rocket ship that never existed with just our minds, to worshiping God, to being able to determine what our kids need and want, I don't think that we ever will see the full scope of the potential within us that God has created. As creation, we've never seen the full potential of what he's given us.
Exactly. And hold on to that thought and think about how we're made. We're made with physical bodies. And so how do we need to develop? Well, we need to develop physically. And beyond developing just physically by growing, we do sports or we do different things to teach us balance, riding a bike, whatever, that teach us to balance, that teaches us different aspects of our physical body and how to use that in a way that's good for us. Then we're made with a soul, and our soul is our mind, our will, and our emotions. So let's talk about our mind. We know that needs to get developed as kids. So in addition to the body getting developed with different activities and go outside and play, and that's all developed, now your mind needs to get developed. So we do school, and we develop you academically, and we teach you to think, and we teach you to read, and all these other things. So that's part of our soul. Then our emotions. We know we need to develop kids emotionally. And we say, now, how do you feel about that? Okay. How do you return to joy? And we don't maybe always use that language, but we teach our kids, don't let something small that bad happens ruin the rest of your day. And we teach them how to be emotionally healthy and emotionally connect with others. And then our will, our choices, and we teach our kids about choices all the time, right? And sometimes we use those words. Well, it's your choices, and that some choices bring rewards, some choices bring punishments. So we're developing our bodies, we're developing our minds, our emotions, our will. There's one other aspect of our beings, which is our spirit. And we're failing as a country to develop our kids spiritually. And yet it's a crucial part of who we are. And we so many parents have quit sending their kids to church, stopped leaning into that, and they haven't developed it in their own lives. And so I think we're getting spiritually depleted, spiritually bankrupt. We don't understand worship. We don't understand the connection of what we're doing with these other four to spiritual significance, and how that it really matters that we learn how to connect spiritually with each other, but also that we're connected to something bigger than we are, something more important than we are. And that's what faith brings, and that's what spirituality brings, and that there's more to us, and that we're eternal.
Way more.
Yeah, we're way more. And because of the lack of that development, I think there again, there's this underlying, back to me not learning to play piano, this gnawing sense, this feelings of frustrations, of not being understood, of boredom, of all these things, because we sense there's something in me significant.
Yeah. And I think that's...
I don't even know what it is. We feel like we don't know how to express it. And yet it's there all the time in God.
Yeah. And the lack of development of those 5 areas leads us to try to fulfill it in another way, which makes us feel weak, Now, if you feel like a weak failure, what is going to happen when someone gives you a BS test? When someone like gay or lesbian says, I'm born this way, you don't have the courage to call the BS. So now you got a weaker person that didn't fully develop on those 5 areas that should have been the good guy that stood up, but he sat down. Now why would Satan want you to sit down? I've been thinking about this for a while, and I put some thought into this.
Right.
Now, no, I've got a good answer for this.
Yeah, go for it.
The truth stands on its own, but a lie needs to be defended. The best way for me to get my lie to stand on its own is to get you to sit down and shut up.
Right.
Now I don't have to defend my lie, and I don't have to protect it, and I don't have to defend it. And so the goal is, if you're undeveloped and you're weak, and you're a coward, and you don't call my BS when I say it, you got 5 seconds. If you don't say it when you're supposed to say it, and you sit down and shut up, I've won the argument. Right. With a lie. The truth was never said, and the lie won the argument.
And you did it with intimidation.
Well, no. You did it with not developing the child at a young age.
Well, that's true, too.
Yes. So here's the deal. God said the family unit was very important.
Yeah.
It's everything, Todd.
That's right.
If you look at what Hitler did and stuff, Hitler didn't get away with what Hitler did because the top was all powerful and the bottom just capitulated. The bottom was complicit.
Yes.
All those little peons that were the local sheriffs and the local police, all those little business owners allowed them to do that to the Jews.
Yeah.
You have to have complete submission from the bottom half to make it work. And the only way to get that many people to do it is to morally bankrupt them so they're too much of cowards to answer when it's time to answer.
Yeah, and then you're right.
We're going to repeat and build a new army of capitulators right now. Or we got to fix it. God can fix anything, and it needs to be fixed. And the guys I talk to, a lot of guys, we're coming in full circle. I really think there's a revival coming.
Well, it's either that or we're going to go to the totalitarianism type of government like you just described. Because we're getting to a point where we want to be just told what to do and not be responsible. But look, that's another topic for another.
Yeah. I don't want to get negative either. So I'm not going to lie to you, Todd. I think God put you in my life at 12 years old for a reason. I think God moved me to Texas 2,000 miles away for a reason. I didn't realize any of the things when they happened. But it's pretty amazing to see what you think you meant for good or what you think was supposed to happen and what God planned on happening. I don't know. I don't know if it's predestination. I don't know if it's free will or if there's some wild combination of the two that work together in synchronicity somehow. But personal development and searching out how to serve others and how to seek God cannot be replaced with anything else.
Yeah.
And if you do it right, your children will develop better.
You're absolutely right. It's the best shot you have of fulfillment in your life, but also seeing your kids, your family fulfilled. And
there's no better strategy.
And just whether it's a baby step, but keep leaning into that. And you just keep making small changes. Like we said earlier, 15 minutes a day on anything, and you'll be better than 99% of the people around you. And that's the same with relationships. 15 minutes with your kids, and you'll be like their best friend. You know, just small amounts of time can do amazing things if you give yourself to it.
And we have so much time. Everybody keeps saying, I don't have enough time. I wish I had some other time. There is no more time.
Well,
get exactly the same amount of time. Think about this. The bum on that seat, on that park bench, gets 24 hours a day.
Yeah,
I get 24 hours. You get 24 hours. Donald Trump gets 24 hours.
Back to your idea of authenticity and people not being authentic even with themselves. Anybody who says that is not being authentic to themselves. Because you have the time, you're just
Mismanaging it.
yourself so poorly that you are not spending it the way you want to spend it.
Yeah.
We all do have the time. It's just, yeah, like you said, we all have the same amount of time. Tony Dungy, I loved, during football and all of this amazing stuff that he would do, getting up early, staying up late. But he determined, because spirituality mattered to him, that he would read the Bible through every year, once every year, read it through every year, and that he would not stop doing that.
That's a daunting task.
Well, I know pastors who don't do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I read one chapter a day. One chapter. But again, even if it's baby steps, it matters.
Tony Dungy said, I want to read the Bible through every year. And he just said to whoever his coaches were, his teammates were, I'm going to meet once a week just to say where I'm at. If you want to be with me in that meeting, no pressure, no obligation. But if you want to join me in that meeting to say where you're at, back to your point, Regan, of doing it with people and having mentors and friends. He said that my office is open. I don't remember when. I'll say Tuesday at 7 a.m. And whoever showed up, it would just be going around. Okay, you should be here. Where are you at? Okay, where do you want to be?
Accountability. Yeah, accountability.
Where would you like to see yourself be next week? Here? Okay, I'm writing that down. I'm going to ask you next week. And then he would do that. And he said, at the end of the year, all those, for the last 30 years now, he's read through the Bible once a year for every year. He made the time. It's not that you don't have the time. You got to make the time to do the things that are important to you. Tony Dungy said, reading the Bible is important to me. I'm going to make the time for it. And he did. Well, anyway, you give the last word. Go for it.
Guys, I'm telling you right now, Todd's got great insight. And I've noticed if you do any of these things and you start going down a path where you do save your time and you budget your money and you do, all of a sudden the weeds start going away. You begin to carve off the dead wood.
Yeah.
I don't watch TV almost ever. It started off with just not watching the news. I pretty much probably watch 2 hours a week is going to be my honest estimate of how much time on TV. And it's normally like today, especially now that it's raining, I'll probably watch a movie with the kids. Because
those things are fair because you're keeping it regulated.
Todd, I would sleep to the TV every night.
Oh.
Can you imagine my subconscious mind constantly getting fed garbage all night? I was allowing that garbage in my mind all night. Some people like a fan next to them. I was just, and it was the same show over and over again. It wasn't like it was terrible, terrible. So it slowly started carving off that dead wood. And I thank you so much for sharpening me the other week. You have no idea how much value that added to me. Because I normally can tell my mind, move aside, we're going to stay on the path, or let's get out of the weeds, guys. I got to get back on track. And I totally was floundering really fast, and I didn't see it. I couldn't see it. And I was focused on money, which I wasn't focused for months, and all of a sudden I went there real quick, and I turned right around, man, and I appreciate it.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Way to go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Every time you make a baby step, celebrate it because it really is awesome.
Yeah.
And with others too. Hey, Regan, it's been great. I always love when we can talk.
Yeah. Plug your church. Plug your church. Any men's meeting or anything you're doing like that, go ahead and say something now.
We're doing a men's meeting. We do it every first Saturday of the month here at the church, and it's a breakfast from 8 to 9:30. The last Friday of every month, Brian Evelich does at his forge. He does a momentum meeting. That's a lot of fun for the guys who do that. And then on December 10th, another church is doing a kind of inter-church Hungry Man breakfast, and I'm the keynote speaker at
Nice.
Oasis Church in Cheshire. So
That's awesome, man. Okay, cool.
yeah. So all right. Well, hey, love talking.
Appreciate it.
God bless you, Regan.
God bless you, Todd. You have a great week, man.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.
weather is good. Sun is shining, shining. Don't get my vibe.